For years now, we've been hearing about the plight of the bees, how disastrous it would be if the bees went away, all of our food would go away, mass chaos, riots in the streets, dogs and cats living together. You know the deal. So of course a lot of effort has been made to protect the honeybees in America. Thousands of people have started beekeeping in the last 10 years or so, and the workhorse of most of these commercial beekeepers anyway is the European honeybee. But the European honeybee, as the name suggests, is not native to North America. Like, it actually shouldn't be here. Be here? Get it? Yeah. And it turns out that's causing problems now. Because of course it is. So we're going to be talking about that in today's lightning round video, where we're also going to talk about geothermal energy, the problem of misinformation on YouTube, and some new alleged Bigfoot footage. Let's check that out. Hey, thanks for sticking around. If you're new to the channel, lightning round videos are where I take questions from my Patreon supporters who support at a certain level. It's one of the many perks that come with Patreon, so if you'd like to get a question answered or just see what the other perks are, just go to patreon.com/answerswithjoe. All right, first up, Brian Beswick asks, with all the buzz about UAPs and now the latest Bigfoot video from Colorado, what's your favorite cryptid? And do you think any of them might be real? Bigfoot, new Bigfoot footage. I love that. So he did send a link. Let's take a look at it real quick. So the link that he sent was actually from Yahoo, and all you get is this blurry photo, go figure, but there is also some video from from the Independent. That was actually what this was aggregated from. And let's look at this video. This is actually from a news report.
A couple was on that sightseeing train between Durango and Silverton. They were trying to spot elk when they saw this creature that they could only describe as Bigfoot. 6-7 feet tall, they say, camouflaged. Now, okay, I mean, if you really look closely...
Yeah, you have to look closely.
Describe it as. Look.
Pretty grainy.
Right?
It's time to go. It's time to pack up and go.
Someone's in a costume out there freaking people out.
Okay, so this happened along the rail line between Durango and Silverton. It's a very popular tourist thing. It's thousands of people every year take. It's very scenic. It's very beautiful. I never actually went on it. We went to Colorado all the time when I was a kid. But anyway, it's a tourist thing. So of course my immediate thought when watching that, first of all, is that they claim that it's about 7 feet tall. I don't know how they are making that assertion. You really can't tell how big the bushes are out there and everything. But my immediate thought is it's along a rail line that is full of tourists. It sounds like a big prank to me. The whole article here from the Independent, I'll link it down below. It talks about, like, they've got interviews with locals and whatnot. They're making a much bigger deal about it. I know that there have been Bigfoot sightings in Colorado. Most Bigfoot sightings are thought to be in the Pacific Northwest, kind of Oregon, Washington area and whatnot. But I mean, I just went to Colorado recently and there were hats and stuff everywhere with Bigfoot stuff on it. So there's definitely some kind of Bigfoot culture there. So that's generally my my way of looking at these cryptid videos is, you know, if there's any other possible explanation, then it has to kind of be ruled out. And I feel like that's a very good explanation right there, is that it just might have been a tourist thing or a prank on some tourists. Although somebody also suggested it might have been a hunter, like in full camouflage out there. I could see that. But in terms of like what is my favorite cryptid, I would say obviously the jackalope. Although I know that the jackalope isn't real. It actually came out of Douglas, Wyoming. That was I think a taxidermist did that for a bar, and they put it up in the bar. I think you can go see the original jackalope there. And I think there's a statue in town in Douglas, Wyoming of a jackalope just for that. But I mean, the jackalope, as we think of it, was clearly a made-up thing. But there have been tales in folklore, Native American and otherwise, of horned rabbits or hares, not just in the United States, but in Europe as well. But one thing I did kind of look around a little bit about it, one thing that is kind of interesting is that they suspect that maybe some of those tales from folklore and whatnot might have had an actual natural explanation to it, that it might have been the result of what they call Shope papillomavirus. The Shope papillomavirus infection in rabbits and hares causes sort of growths on their head that I suppose if they grew long enough would look like antlers. By the way, when I was a kid, I was the smallest guy in my class, and one of the teachers would always call me Jackrabbit because I was really fast and I could like run around on the field and it looked like a rabbit running around with the other kids. So Jackrabbit was my nickname when I was a kid. Didn't have any horns though. Robin Colburn wrote a very long question, which I will shorten in the interest of not taking up half the video. Come on, help me out here, Robin. Okay. But basically her question was, I've seen some studies that say that beekeeping can actually be harmful to local ecosystems because beekeepers use imported European honeybees instead of local pollinators. Are we overdoing it with beekeeping craze? Oh, hey, you gonna come in here and disrespect the honeybee? You gonna come into my house and tell me the honeybees are bad? Well, I ought to spank you in the cabbage now. Favala, rigatoni! Sorry, I got a little carried away defending the bees there. But seriously, we've been all like, save the bees for so long. I mean, could there have been a downside to it? Were we so concerned with finding out if we could save the honeybees that we didn't stop to think if we should? Are we creating Jurassic Hive? Jurassic Mark? Because honeybee stings leave a mark? This metaphor has collapsed. Metaphor! But it seems that Robin's question does have some merit. I found this article from Scientific American in 2020 about this very thing. Which, by the way, this is obviously an American issue. European honeybees aren't really a problem in Europe, so... but it does have corollaries all around the world. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to think about that, honeybees are so ubiquitous that we kind of stop and forget that, they're actually an invasive species. An invasive species that we brought in because they are really good specifically at pollinating a lot of plants and making a lot of honey. But yeah, as this article points out, and I'll put this in a link down in the description below, that in some places it does crowd out local bees and pollinators, many of which were already endangered and were at risk, actually way more than the imported bees were. But yeah, as it says right here, high densities of honeybee colonies increase competition between native pollinators for forage, putting even more pressure on the wild species that are already in decline. Honeybees are extreme generalist foragers and monopolize floral resources, thus leading to exploitative competition, that is, where one species uses up a resource, not leaving enough to go around. And it also mentioned that these, hyperpollinating bees can actually increase the spread of damaging weeds because, they don't discriminate between what plants they pollinate, whereas native bees might. I mean, anytime you disrupt an ecosystem, there are knock-on effects, and we might not know for a while now just how bad this will affect things. And it did make the point that it actually affects different places in different ways. Like, they did a study on an island in the Canary Islands that had actually never had imported bees before, and they were able to see, a before and after effect that you just can't get now because, like I said, the European bees are so ubiquitous around here. And they were able to show in the Canary Islands that there was a reduction in native bee populations, like almost immediately. But in other places, not so much. A similar experiment was done in South America that showed no difference at all. And every ecosystem is different. In one example, a native bumblebees actually did better because their proboscis was longer and could reach the nectar in certain native tulips that the imported bee couldn't. Anyway, there has been a massive increase in hobby beekeeping lately in response to the perceived honeybee crisis that we had a few years back. In fact, my sister-in-law started a little beekeeping business. And I can see why it's attractive. You feel like you're helping out the environment. You're also able to sell some honey and make a little money off of it. But it seems that every rose does have its thorn. And a bee pollinating that rose. I mean, so you might sit there and say, like, who cares if the bees are pollinating and making our food and whatnot, then what does it matter whether it's a native species or an invasive species that's doing it? But like I said, there's knock-on effects on all these things. If you lose a native bee species, who knows what other species that would affect, and there's ripple effects that go on down. So yeah, I don't know that we need to stop beekeeping or start killing off native bees or something like that, or not native bees, but the imported bees. I don't think we're at that point yet, but I guess it's something to keep in mind. Cole Parker asked, "Hey Joe, if YouTube called you up and asked you to help them fix misinformation or lies in YouTube videos, shorts, and ads, what would you recommend to help improve the situation?" So, yes, there is a big misinformation problem on YouTube, and, actually I want to start, last month's lightning round video, I talked about the Toyota's ammonia engine, and I mentioned that it's just a bunch of AI-driven clickbait channels that are talking about it. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So yeah, when you do a search, as I did a search up here for ammonia engine, you can see literally the top 4 are these just like AI clickbait farm content, including one that says that Tesla built an ammonia engine, which is an absolute lie. And they're all like at the very top of the search results. You can see right there, this 4th one down here, 7.4 million views on that one. I don't like this. I mean, other YouTubers, much bigger YouTubers than me, have complained about this. And look, I wouldn't have a problem if these were like other content creators that were all covering this in various ways. I would have a problem if they were lying, obviously. But this is just content farms run by AI that is just putting garbage out there. Sometimes it is not actually not true. So I don't know what the secret is or what the solution is for changing that, but I wish that was something that YouTube could work on. When it comes to actually like clickbait though, I do think that misleading titles and thumbnails are a problem and should be discouraged one way or another, because a lot of people don't read the articles or actually watch the videos, but they're bombarded by misleading titles and thumbnails, and this stuff does kind of get embedded in your head. That is a way of spreading misinformation. I do sometimes miss the star system that they had back in the very early days of YouTube, because you could gauge a video's quality by the audience reaction. Now, of course, that can be easily abused, and it was, which is why it's not around anymore. Comment spam was a big problem, and it's still a big problem, but they seem to have gotten a little control over it. But for a while there, I would spend a couple of hours after uploading every video just trying to delete all the comments that were pretending to be me and scamming people. Thankfully, they seem to have fixed that. I don't have to do that anymore. But I do have to say that the longer that I've been doing this, and the more that I've gotten to know some of the people who actually work at YouTube, who are working on this kind of stuff, the more I realize just how big of a problem this is, or how difficult it is to fix. It's like every single potential fix has an easily exploitable downside that bad actors will absolutely find a way to abuse. And of course, there's a whole problem with bots. Well, that was mostly the comment issue. So ultimately, YouTube is a social media platform, and they have the same problem as all social media. They have to prioritize the time on the platform, and in order to get that, they have to have algorithms that are tailored to promote engagement, regardless of veracity. Of course, if your platform becomes untrustworthy in the eyes of the public, they'll stop going there, so it's a give and take. But it is actually a really tough problem, and I don't know how to fully get rid of it without, some kind of verification system, and then you get into accusations of, free speech issues, etc. But I do wish they had a way to kind of weed out these, garbage content farms that just crap stuff out. Maybe the same way that they use Content ID to find songs, maybe they can use that to determine if something is sourced from AI. Would be nice. At the very least, it might stop us. At the very least, it would be good if they would stop promoting this kind of junk and putting it at the very top of search results, like I was just talking about. Sai asked, what are the limitations of utilizing geothermal in the US? Obviously, geography would be a huge limiting factor, but I'm curious why we're not geothermaling the bejesus out of where it's possible. It's the money, Lebowski. Geothermal's been on a wild ride over the last 20 years or so, but it might be on an upswing thanks to, wait for it, fossil fuels? Anyway, just in case you don't know what geothermal is, here's the basics. So most geothermal is in places like Iceland, places like, Yellowstone, where there's natural geysers and hot springs from volcanic activity underground. So you got this really hot stuff going on under the ground. They basically pump water into it, and that water turns to steam, and then that steam turns a turbine that then makes energy, and that's how it works. So you get like that free energy from the ground, and they make electricity out of it. But the problem with that is that obviously you can only do that in specific places, which is why Iceland is like kind of the world capital of geothermal. They make a lot of geothermal energy there because they're just like right underneath the volcano. It's just a big volcano. Actually, as I'm recording this, they're starting to have some eruptions right now. So hopefully by the time you see this, Iceland is still around. But there's also something called enhanced geothermal. So the thing is, like, pretty much, and this is my understanding of it, but pretty much anywhere, you don't have to be over a volcano necessarily, but anywhere, the further down you dig, the hotter it gets. Now, enhanced geothermal pumps something more like ammonia. I keep bringing up ammonia, but something with a much lower evaporation point than water. So you pump that down in there as a liquid, it heats it up, it expands, and then that turns a turbine, and there you go. You got energy just like everywhere else. And I'm with you. I'm really surprised we haven't seen more of this. But what it really comes down to is that it's just expensive. This all became very popular back in the early 2000s, but compared to other types of energy, it was just more expensive. Big geothermal plants are a lot. Now, especially over the years, as solar and wind became cheaper, they became more popular amongst the alternative energy, people that want to have energy that doesn't put carbon into the atmosphere. It's just like everything else. That was cheaper, so that's what everybody went to. The good thing about geothermal, though, over wind and solar is, of course, it's more baseline power. It's not just something that peaks and valleys and whatnot. It's something that's all the time running always, just like a hydro dam plant, hydropower, or just like, fossil fuels or nuclear. So, but another thing happened that was kind of not good for geothermal at first. Now it's actually a very good thing, and I'll get to why in a second. But natural gas became a lot cheaper in the late 2000s, early 2010s and whatnot, due to fracking, the process of drilling into the ground, going sideways, blasting it with water and opening up more gas channels that's underneath in the rock and whatnot. That made natural gas a lot cheaper, which again kind of turned people away from the geothermal in terms of like the amount of money it was costing and whatnot. But there is a silver lining here, because that exact same fracking technology that they go down and drill sideways is making it cheaper and more efficient for geothermal. Because now it's not just going straight down and back up. You can go straight down underground, then go sideways and go back and forth. You can put a lot more water down there, get a lot more energy out of it. And lately, some new private companies have picked up on this and have started pilot plants. There's a few examples that I could put in the description down below. But there's still some hurdles to overcome, but it could possibly be that fracking technology might give geothermal what it needs to finally compete. That would be really cool. One other thing that I've always liked about geothermal is that whenever we talk about reworking our energy infrastructure and putting up solar and wind and whatnot, being from Texas, I know and have family members even that work in oil, that work in natural gas, and there's always the worry that like this newer stuff is going to take away those jobs. Well, actually, geothermal and enhanced geothermal is perfectly suited for the jobs of the people that have been working in oil and gas. Like they can take the skills that they already have there, apply it to geothermal, and we get clean energy out of it. So, I mean, just on a humanitarian front, that's another reason why I'm big on geothermal, and I hope it does take off. Hopefully, in the next 10 or 20 years, we'll see it finally start to achieve what it was meant to do. John wrote, "How old do you think the average person is before they have the thought that when I see green, do you see red? That realization that things defined subjectively may not be true objectively." Judging by the YouTube and social media comments that I'd see, I'd imagine about 30% of people never actually reach that age. I like apples. I prefer oranges. You need to be more sensitive to other people's preferences. Do better. Yeah, there's a term that I've been hearing a lot lately called main character syndrome, where people just seem to think that the world revolves around them. And I'm sure we've all seen examples of this. I have said before that one of the most frustrating things for me when it comes to looking at comments on my videos and stuff is that I really think that some people watch a video with the expectation that the person speaking is going to simply repeat their own thoughts back to them. And when you don't do that, they become furious. And I mean, there's always been self-centered, self-absorbed people in the world. I do feel like maybe it's gotten a bit worse in the age of social media. Maybe because we have algorithms that just feed us what we want to see all the time. So when you get fed something that you don't want to see, it's like shocking and people take umbrage on it. Also, I think that the internet, specifically social media, is really just an opinion machine. It's just a place for everybody to express their opinion. And I think having all these different places to share your opinion has given some people the feeling that that their opinion is like more important than it actually is. Like it's like because they have an opinion, it's special or something, when in fact everybody has an opinion and everybody has a different lived experience, But regarding like when people do become aware that the world doesn't revolve around them and other people's experiences might be different from them, I don't know that I'm a good person to ask for that, because I'm not a dad. I haven't actually raised kids. I haven't seen kids go through these stages. I did find an article though that talks about the 5 different stages that babies go through in terms of self-awareness. This is on a website called Fatherly. But it talks about, there's 5 different stages, and these came from Emory University's Philippe Rochat, PhD. He scoured developmental studies to construct his 5 stages of self-awareness, describing how children learn to identify themselves and their loved ones as distinct entities from birth until age 5. So the first stage here is the stage 1. It says the birth stage. It says the baby in the mirror. And it basically says that at level 1, A newborn knows that there's a difference between their image and the background images in the mirror and between themselves and their environment, but a deeper sense of self-awareness will have to wait. So as opposed to, say, like a bird that just flies into a window or something like that, humans seem to actually be born with some level of self-awareness that the image of ourselves in the mirror is an image of us. And he describes stage 2 as the stage where, and this is about 2 months in, where the babies can like manipulate things in the mirror image, like grab for things that it sees in the mirror. It says stage 3 at 18 months is the stage where, like, if you put a dot on a baby's face and it looks in a mirror, it can like reach for the dot on its face and not the dot in the mirror. So it's got a little bit more awareness that the face in the mirror is themselves and that they can interact with it outside of the mirror. So stage 4 from 2 to 3 years, they call it the ups and downs of object permanence. This one actually kind of fascinates me because it was talking about how babies know that when they look at, say, a video of themselves on screen, that it's them that they're seeing, but they still see that them on the screen as a separate person. Yeah, Roshan calls this the me but not me dilemma. Like it says, it means that if the researchers had asked Jennifer who she saw in the mirror, she would have probably said me. And yet, if asked to describe 3 figures in the mirror, she might have responded, Mommy, Daddy, and Jennifer. So they still refer to the person in the mirror as like a third person. And stage 5 is that final step where they realize that the person that they're seeing in the mirror is them. It's not like some third person version of them. It's the actual them. And they enter the dawn of self-consciousness is what he calls it, what most of us experience as adults. It kind of asks a really important question here, like when does a person become a person? Not just through the developmental stages and whatnot, but when do you mature enough to understand that because you experience something a certain way, it doesn't mean that everybody else experienced it that way? And again, I think there's a scary number of people that are just incapable of that, honestly. Yeah, a lot of people talk about this term called sonder. I think it was made up for the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, but it's the idea, it's the realization that every single person that you see in the world is having as fully formed an experience of life as you are. And sometimes that thought can be overwhelming because we're just so subjective in how we see everything that the idea that everybody else is having a similar experience that's completely different from yours. And there's, 9 billion people in the world, so there's 9 billion different fully formed life experiences that you can't even possibly imagine. It's a kind of a mind-blowing thought. It's a very sobering and maturing thought. But if you're somebody for whom the idea of sonder is second nature, you might be interested in today's sponsor, Givewell. I say that because you're clearly empathetic, you can put yourself in others' shoes, maybe you're more interested in helping those in need. Luckily for you, there's literally millions of charities around the world to choose from. Unluckily for you, there's literally millions to choose from. Well, that's exactly why Givewell exists. They're like the Consumer Reports of charities. They're a nonprofit, independent charity vetting source, so you know that your hard-earned money is going to work hard for other people. All their research and recommendations are on their website. It's a completely free service. Givewell doesn't even take a cut of your donation. So far, over 100,000 donors have donated more than $1 billion through Givewell, and according to their studies, have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Lives saved through initiatives to combat malaria and provide vitamin A supplements that have lowered infant mortality rates in third world countries, amongst other things. So look, it's a holiday season. Maybe you're in the giving spirit. We've actually started a bit of a tradition in my family lately where we've been donating to charities in lieu of buying gifts for each other. I guess we just decided we have enough stuff. But yeah, I actually used Givewell for that reason. They made it easy to find the one that I felt good about, and that I knew that the person I was buying it for would feel good about. Or maybe you had a good year and you're looking for a tax write-off. Whatever works. Givewell cuts through the BS so you can donate with confidence that's actually going to do some good in the world. And you'll feel better about yourself. And that's a good thing. You should feel better about yourself. So all you got to do is go to givewell.org to see all their research and tools. But if you want to give me credit by clicking the YouTube on their page and writing Joe Scott in the field, they'll match your donation up to $100. And they'll think I'm super cool. So, it's worth it. So anyway, that's givewell.org. I'll put that link down in the description and pin it in the comments now. Go forth and give well. Okay, so this is, if not the last video of the year, one of the last videos of the year. So I just wanted to say, first of all, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all those who celebrate. And thank you for supporting this channel for yet another full year. Actually, believe it or not, next year will be a big year for this channel because I will have been doing it nonstop, steadily for 10 years in 2024. It'll be my 10th year on this platform. So yeah, I am a fossil. But no, seriously, it's been a big year with a lot of changes, and I hope that they're good changes and that you guys appreciate the increased quality around here. We've been working really hard to get things at a higher quality, but regardless, I couldn't do it without you guys. You make it possible for me to do this thing. It's kind of a dream job, so thank you guys so much. I hope you've had a good 2023, and I hope that 2024 brings you everything you could ever want. Thank you. But you know what? That's it for today. You guys go out there, have an eye-opening rest of the week, stay safe, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, all the things, and I will see you